Well, hello everyone, Bob here with another episode of my boat renovation / restoration project. And been trying to wrap things up by the end of the year. I'm trying to get you guys all caught up with everything that I've done. But I came across some footage that some of it was 2 years old of some work modifications I did on the fiberglass hatch. It was an original hatch that was over the entry door to the cabin. I've been working on this thing on and off for years and redid the coaming on it and all kinds of stuff. And I think I've covered everything in videos up to this footage that I found that was 2 years old. And I actually worked on it again at the beginning of this year, January through like beginning of March. So I was going to tack this into the next video, but the footage turned out to be so much that I decided to just give it its own video. So I'm slipping this video in before my last update video, which will cover October and November of 2022. I didn't do anything this month and don't plan on it. So here's some footage of the modifications I did to this door hatch. This is the hatch over the door going down into the cabin. Now I've already done some work to this a few years ago, and I just kind of set it off to the side and haven't touched it since. Had already removed all the plywood backing that was back here, so it was just fiberglass when I did this. Then I attached this plywood, and then I also epoxied on these strips of 1/4 inch plywood. So I just want to sand this down, get some fairing compound on it. Well, as you can see, this is going to require some tedious sanding. Well, it's late January, it's snowing like crazy outside, and today I'm going to be fiberglassing the underside of this hatch. I filleted all around the edges. I got to do some more work on this after I fiberglass it, but we'll get into that after. I'm going to be using Dynel right here. And I'm going to put one layer on this. I've used this on the hatches in the cockpit and other parts in the cockpit already, so you've seen me use this before. Alright, well, there it is on. Now I'm not too worried about all this stuff up here, because I have to grind everything on the sides here anyways. So I'm probably just going to trim it off at some point. Gets right into the corners, really tight. Okay, well, it's been drying for a few days. I did apply 3 coats of additional epoxy onto this after the initial fiberglass was installed. And that's just to give me some thickness to sand. Because you can see the surface is pretty rough when you use this Dynel material. I think the fibers raise up, and that's what you get. So next step is to scrub this down with a Scotch-Brite pad and some water to get rid of any of the amine blush. And then I'll be sanding with some 80 grit paper by hand and with my dual action sander. And then I'll go around with my Dremel and just get rid of all this excess fiberglass and epoxy on the edges here. All right, well, as you can see behind me here, I've got the hatch over at the boat, and we're gonna fit this today. I got it setting on here, and that's how it's basically gonna fit. The gap will be actually a little bit more on here because I am gonna put a seal on here, but it looks a little tighter back here, as you can see. So I'm not too concerned about the gaps right at this moment, not today, but I will try to make that even everywhere. And we'll try to look over on the other side. We'll just check out the outside here first. I got tools and everything else here I gotta watch out for and trip over. But here we are on this side. This side the gap's good all the way along, so we don't have to do anything here. There's a view from the front there. I mean, I fit this hatch a long time ago, but it's been a while. We'll look on. Let's look underneath because it's easier to get under there right now. So here's the underside. There is a bit of a gap right here. I don't know if that really matters because we're outside of the door here, so even if it leaked, it would just drip down here and then drip off. So I'm not sure I have to do anything there, but if I have to, I'll put a little bit of a shim in there and get that gap to close up. But as you can see right now, it's all just sitting right on the lip of the coaming there, or whatever you would call that. Yeah, that's good on this side too. One of the things I'm going to be working on today is, this is the back side of it here, and all those holes are where the hinge screws on. There's supposed to be a piece of wood there. I took it off. So I have to build a new one that's going to sit on this lip right here. That's why I don't want to put the gasket in right now, because I want this to be a tight fit. So I have to form a little piece that's going to go right in here. I'm going to use this piece of wood right here as to make a template. This hatch is not square, and it never fit on the old fiberglass edging here. I don't know what the term is. I'll think of what the term is, but and what they did, and I don't know if it was the factory that did this or the owner, previous owner, but they put this shim on here because it was really off and the hinge didn't even work. But I don't think I need this shim because the way I fit it on here, it is flush on this side with the back of this. It's just an issue over here. You can see, if I go this way, hopefully, you know, you can see the frame down here. This has to be built out with some fiberglass so that this whole thing is even all the way across. See, I'll pan over this way, and you can see how it's flush on this side. So I don't really need that big shim, which is good. I thought I was going to need it, but I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to take some wood and just see how far it has to come out over here, and I'm just going to rebuild this with some fiberglass and taper it in. And I'll just come back and forth with it when I do it, but that's all right. I'm refiberglassing. This whole top is all messed up anyway, so I got to work on it. So I'm going to be doing a lot of work like that. So this is good to know. I'm going to make a shim today for this. I'm probably not going to film that because it's just going to be up and down and running around. So we're back down in the cockpit, and I'm going to skip over the issues that are right here in the front because I'm going to deal with those. I have an idea what I'm going to do there, and I'll describe that and go over that when I actually work on that part of it. Okay, so now I close the door, so you can see at the top there's like a gap. It's kind of dark to see, but in this area right here there's a gap that there's a panel that goes there. I'm going to build a new one out of mahogany, but this is the piece that was in there originally. I'm going to use this as kind of a guide. You can see it's got like a piano hinge on it, and this is what attaches to the bottom of the hatch, and this whole thing swings down, so when the hatch goes up, that little panel swings down. But anyways, I got to build a new one, and I'm going to varnish it, and so I'm going to be kind of looking at that today as well. Alright, so yesterday I spent most of the afternoon just pondering this after I shut down the camera and showed you guys the whole thing, but just trying to think of what I was going to do here. But before I left the boat, I put this piece of tape on here. This is on the hinge area. And the reason I did that is because this had too much of a gap, and I wanted to kind of establish a shape. So I kind of put the tape on with a nice curve in this corner and just gave it, made it a little bit higher so that I could close up the gap between this and the actual frame piece. And you can probably see a little better on this side right here where the fiberglass was just cut down at a sharp angle here. And so I'm just going to try to make it nicer. But so I did that all the way along. But today I'm going to take that tape off, but before I do that I'll just sand it. It's kind of rough. I just tried to match the shape of that tape as good as I could. I'll sand it down to the tape, and then I'll start grinding this area here from probably here down, and that's where I'm going to fiberglass it to get a little more thickness on it here. It's got to be an 1/8 inch thicker on this part here, and it'll taper down to like 0 right there. So I'll just put a long piece of fiberglass and a shorter one, shorter one, shorter one until I get down to here, and that'll kind of give it sort of a taper that I can at least sand in, and then we'll bring it over to the boat and see how that fits. And after that, we'll do some fiberglassing on this side, because you can see this is really thin right here, this fiberglass. And even though I'm going to put a piece of wood in here, I want to fiberglass this in, and that'll kind of help stabilize this epoxy I added at the top here too. Alright guys, well, a quick update. I did get the tape off. Now it did stick where I put the new epoxy and thickened epoxy, but I just sanded that off with my hand sander. It took like no time at all. But you can see now the tape's off how much I added on like this side, and as we go across there's not that much, and then this side I added quite a bit. I didn't even get enough epoxy in there. As you can see, it's kind of a divot, but at least it establishes the shape. So now I'll grind all this area off here. There's some chips and everything in the gel coat here. It's right down to the glass. So I'll go right up over this edge and grind all of this. I put this piece of tape here because this is kind of where it levels off, and it's fine from here down. But I'm still going to grind this anyways, just to have it all ground down and even. And but at least I'll know from this piece of tape where to fiberglass to. Okay, well, that was about 15 minutes of grinding, and I ended up doing the whole hinge area. I'm actually going to do the entire hatch at some point because the gel coat has a lot of spider cracks in it. But to get it to this point, I used my dual action sander with some 40 grit on it, and it worked really good. There's a few spots, like right in here, where there was actually gel coat in there. I chipped it out. And now I'm going to go and clean it out with my Dremel and a little grinding bit on there. So we'll film what happens next. We're basically all set up here to start the fiberglassing. Now I've already wiped all this down with acetone. I'm going to be putting a little bit of thickened epoxy in these spots where I ground out before. I'll wet the whole thing out with unthickened epoxy, and then I'll put some thickened epoxy in the low spots that I ground out before I install the fiberglass. And over here I got my fiberglass all cut. I only need 3 pieces to get the thickness I need from what I'm estimating, but I'm going to do 4 just to have a little extra. I'm going to be grinding down and trying to flatten it out anyway, so that'll give me a little bit extra thickness in the end. And I've got my plastic here. I'll be pre-wetting each piece out here before I install it. Okay, so another little stop in the action just to show you guys. It's getting pretty nice and smooth over and through here. Still need a little bit right there, obviously. And on this side, you can see how it's starting to bridge this gap, and eventually this will all be gone. So I'm really got to concentrate on sanding this over here, and then that'll go away basically. Because I got to thin this whole thing down here. So I'm just going to keep working at it. With this long board, it's not the easiest thing to sand with that long board. That's fiberglass is hard to sand, even though I have 36 grit on there. Doesn't sand easy, but I want to keep it flat. I don't want it to be all wavy, so I have to do it this way. Okay, well here it is after the rough fairing, and I say rough fairing because there's no fairing compound on there. It's just the fiberglass sanded with a 36 and a little bit of 80 grit paper. Now there's a few little craters in here. I'm going to fill those in. And there's one just right along here. I already ground all these out with my Dremel. That's just there because the corner turned right here, and this fiberglass didn't really turn on the corner. It just kind of came out straight. So there's a little bit of an area right where the original fiberglass was turning that needs to be filled. But that's about it. Now you can also see how much of a difference there is in the thickness of the fiberglass here compared to down here, which is super thin. I'm going to have to actually add fiberglass to the inside from like here down. But that's another day, another part of the project. Okay, well I managed to get over to the boat today, and you're looking at the hatch from the flybridge view here, and you can see the gap is pretty good all along the bottom here, and you can see how I turned up the corners to match what's going on. So I'm pretty happy with that gap, and now we'll go up and see what it looks like. I'm kind of half under the helm station, so I'm fumbling around a little bit here, but now you can see it's very flush in this corner. This is where I added the fiberglass. The corner is nice, and it's flush all the way down with the frame, and then this corner matches good. So I would say that adding that fiberglass there was pretty successful, and now the next step is to do some stuff on the opposite side over there, and we'll go down a ladder and check that out. Well, before we go down, I'll just show a little bit of a view here so you can see how it all flushes out with the frame in the back. So that should be good for mounting the hinge. Okay, so we have the back fitting really good, but we do have issues in the front here. I call it the front, but the door side. This side I kind of like how this fits. I like that gap there. I like how the corner fits. I like that. This other side was way too far back, and try to get over there. I don't have the hatches in, so I'm kind of have to look down and make sure I don't fall into the engine pit here. But yeah, you can see how this side is like way back from the edge of this, and so I taped this piece of wood on here that's the right thickness, and that's really how much fiberglass I have to add. It's a little bit more than what I added in the back, but if I add that much and just taper it to the middle, that'll put it right where I want it to be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grind that off and just add, what did I add? 4 layers on the back. I'll add 5 layers on the front here. Now back here we're looking pretty good. I still have to add some fiberglass on the inside back on this side because it's very thin. Then this will actually be the same distance to the face of this piece of white frame right here, which when I put that piece of blocking in here to attach, you can see where the hinges attach. That piece of wood will come out at least flush with this piece right here, because that's where the seal will be, along here. Okay, so in the interest of keeping these videos shorter and non-repetitive, I'm not going to be filming fiberglassing any of the other areas on this hatch. But I did fiberglass this part last night. This is the interior part on the port side. that I had to thicken up. So I did that. This little piece of plastic here is not here to hold up this edge. It's kind of, the whole thing is just clamped there. I just put it there because I didn't trim this very good, and after I got like the third layer of fiberglass on there, it started drooping. So I put that on there just to hold it up while it dried, so I didn't come back and have it be sitting on my sawhorse. So next step of this is going to be to trim that off, and then I'm going to do some more on the other parts, and I'll keep you guys updated on how it's going. Alright, so after about 20 minutes of cutting and grinding, and I use my Dremel here to do the grinding part, my oscillating saw to cut the excess off, we've got a much more even thickness of fiberglass along the back here. Remember, this was very paper thin over here, and that's where we're at. We've got the fiberglass on the front edge there. Ended up doing 5 layers at the thickest area over here, and it's drying overnight. It's dried overnight, I should say. And now I'm gonna sand it down just like I did the hinge area. Okay, so here it is after sanding it with my board sander with 36 grit paper on it and a dual action sander with 40 grit. And I got it all roughed in. There are some areas, I think I'm going to probably end up epoxying over all of this and then sanding it again, because it's pretty rough where the fiberglass makes its transitions and things. And there's some areas I got to fill and do some things. I can show you on this side, like right on the edge here. I had to do this on the hinge part too, fill that in, sand it off. But that's just the rough sanding. You can see how much thicker it is now. It's pretty thick there compared to what I want it, which is in this area here. So I gotta grind some off the inside here. I know this was really close, but I'm not gonna take too much off before I fit it at the boat, because I just don't want to go too far with it in case I have to sand this back and it's too far out or something. I don't know. I'll have to see when I get over there. But I'll take some of it off to get it a little bit closer. All right, well, I'm back out here at the boat working on this hatch. And specifically this piece of wood right here, which is, actually that's my template I just made. So I got the curve going nicely on the top, and then I have an even gap on the bottom. The real piece actually has to touch this white area here, so that gap has to close up. But when I make the new piece, I'll just add a little bit to it. And if it's still not quite enough, I'll add some fiberglass to it, or filler or something to get it perfectly aligned there, because that's where a seal's going to go. Okay, well, here we are at the boat fitting this, and I'm really happy with the fit right now. I did a lot of work on this corner over here, and to get it to match the other side, which I thought was fitting better, and it paid off. A lot of sanding and filling and stuff like that, but it's all good now. What we're really over here for today is to work and to fit this piece right here that I just showed you guys in the garage, in my shop. And I have these spatula things in here just to hold it up, because I left room, I wanted to leave a gap there because I have to fiberglass it, so I'm leaving some space for adding fiberglass. But it's nice and tight up against the top. The corners fit really good, and I'm really happy with it. I've kind of put some marks here so I can line it up again when I get back to the shop and install that. Well, this is all dry now, and I'm going to sand this down, round over this edge, add a fillet in here, maybe in here. I tried to do that when I was putting these in, but it wasn't working out, so I got it off after I shut the camera down. And once that's done, then we'll do some fiberglassing on that. All right, so as you can see by the heaters and everything, I did a little fiberglassing last night, and I went right for the fiberglass. I didn't bother doing any fillets. The fiberglassing was a little tedious, but it came out really good. I used the Dynel, same as I used on this part here. So, next step is to sand that down. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you got some kind of enjoyment out of that thing. But anyways, like I said in the beginning, the next video I put out is going to be the wrap up for 2022. And hopefully that gets out before Christmas. Well, it will get out before Christmas because I'm already working on it. So I'll save my holiday wishes for that video. So until that one comes out, everyone take care, and we'll see you really soon.